What's up guys, Saf here on SuperSaf TV and welcome to the SuperSaf style camera comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra and the iPhone 17 Pro Max. As always, we'll be looking at all the cameras, we'll be looking at video, images, low light. There'll be some chapters down below. Let's get to it.
Now, we're going to start by looking at some images from the primary cameras. As you can see, both take excellent photos with great detail and dynamic range. As always, Samsung tends to go for more punchy, more vibrant colors, whereas the iPhone tends to go for more of a neutral look. Now, we do have photographic styles on the iPhone, so you can dial in the look that you like. Personally, I do prefer a neutral look and then editing it after the fact if I like. Now, one advantage that the iPhone has that in good light by default, it does shoot at 24 megapixels. The Samsung by default shoots at 12 megapixels. And that means by default, you do get high resolution images in good light from the iPhone. Now, yes, you can download the Camera Assistant app from the Galaxy Store on the S26 Ultra and set your images to be default 24 megapixels, but that requires quite a few extra steps and it's not like what we've got out of the box on the iPhone. Having said that, we do have higher resolutions on both devices. So on the iPhone, you've got a max of 48 megapixels, and if we compare this to 50 megapixels on the Samsung, you can see we've got lots more detail on both devices, but I do find that the Samsung is sharper. Now, Samsung does apply some post-sharpening to their images, but it does work in this instance very well. And of course, the Samsung does have a very high resolution 200 megapixel sensor, which means you can get a ton of detail. Now, moving on to low light images from the primary cameras. The first thing you'll notice from this image is that we don't have those lens flare balls on the S26 Ultra's image, whereas those are there on the iPhone. Now, Samsung does have new lenses for their cameras to reduce lens flare, and it really is working in this image. Having said that, although low light images were close in some instances, mostly I did find that I preferred low light images from the primary cameras of the iPhone. You can see this image here. It's sharper on the iPhone compared to the S26 Ultra. And once again, on this image here, although the Samsung appears to be brighter, if you look at the detail on the bricks and on the slabs, you can see that the iPhone is a lot sharper. Now, it seems like in using a longer shutter speed on the Samsung, it is introducing some shake. And with that wider f1.4 aperture, I was expecting better performance in low light. However, I would have to say that the iPhone is better overall. You can see this more on this super low light indoor shot. The iPhone has a brighter image. It's also sharper with more detail. Now let's take a look at the ultra wide cameras. Hey, oh, you again. Do you want to remind them about the hands-on comparison we're working on? You heard the man. We are working on a detailed comparison of the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra versus the iPhone 17 Pro Max, looking at everything else, not just the cameras. If you want to see that first, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon. So although both do decent in most situations, I did prefer the Samsung overall. It was consistently sharper with more detail and dynamic range, especially in this example. If you look towards the top of the image, the iPhone does have a lot of noise, whereas the Samsung has managed it better. And this is further demonstrated in low light images from the ultra wide cameras. You can see here that the Samsung is much sharper. Unfortunately, the iPhone's ultra wide camera is very soft in my experience, especially in low light. Here's another example. You can see the brick detail much better on the Samsung versus the iPhone. And finally, in this example here as well, much sharper on the Samsung versus the iPhone, which is very, very soft. Now, both devices can take macro shots and they do a great job. You can focus in closer with the iPhone. The Samsung has some sharpening processing, which does tend to work in macro shots, and I think they both do really well. Now for the telephoto cameras. So we have a single telephoto camera on the iPhone. This gives you around 4 times optical zoom. On the Samsung, you have 2 optical zoom cameras, one at 3 times and the other at 5 times. Now we can shoot at 2 times zoom on both devices, and this is the equivalent of lossless zoom because it's using the middle part of the sensors, and they both seem to be doing really well. But when we get to 3 times zoom, this is where the optical zoom camera of the S26 Ultra kicks in, and it gives you a sharper result. This is something that we can clearly see when we go to 200%. Now this is going to go all the way up to around 3.9 times, but when we hit 4 times optical zoom, this is where the optical zoom camera of the iPhone kicks in, and it's going to give you a sharper result. Now this is going to carry on all the way up to around 4.9 times until we hit 5 times zoom, when the 5 times optical zoom camera of the Samsung kicks in. And when we compare the 4 times zoom camera of the iPhone versus the 5 times zoom camera of the Samsung, things are very, very close. And one thing you will notice is that although we have 4 times versus 5 times, the iPhone is slightly closer, and that's because they're both using different focal lengths. Now, what about extended zoom? If we go to around 10 times, you can see that Samsung is doing a better job and it's giving you a cleaner result. Even if we go to the maximum zoom of the iPhone at 40 times and compare it to the Samsung's still doing better. Now, granted, it looks like the Samsung is using some AI to enhance the image, not as much as what we've seen on other devices, but nevertheless, it's doing a better job. You can go all the way up to 100 times on the Samsung. This is something that I don't tend to use too much, but hey, the option is there. Now, although the extended zoom is better on the Samsung in good light, as soon as you go to low light, things go in iPhone's favor. And this is despite the fact that we now have a wider aperture on the telephoto camera of the Samsung. And although I would say it's better compared to the S25 Ultra, it's still not as good as the results that we get on the iPhone. Here you can see at around 10 times as well as around 20 times, the iPhone is just giving an overall cleaner result. The Samsung's really trying hard on that sign, but struggling. Just to test this further, I tried to take a photo of this sign. And once again, when we go to 20 times, the Samsung's really trying to apply AI to the text. And in doing so, it's actually making it harder to read, whereas the iPhone, I can actually read that text pretty clearly. So although extended zoom is better on the Samsung in good light, in low light, the iPhone is better. Now, we actually had somewhat of a moon when I was doing this test, so of course I took some pictures of the moon. And on the iPhone, I had to tap and kind of swipe down. On the Samsung, it notices that it's the moon and it uses AI to enhance the image and it gives you a much better result. So if you like taking pictures of the moon, go for the Samsung. Now let's take a look at portraits. I think both of these devices take excellent portraits. Here we are from the primary cameras, but the Samsung does have that dedicated 3 times optical zoom camera. So if we do compare portraits at 3 times on both devices, you'll notice that the Samsung has a sharper result. Although it is pretty bright, and I would say that the black on my jacket is more accurate on the iPhone. Now, the best portraits are using the optical zoom cameras on both devices. Here we're using the 4 times zoom on the iPhone versus the 5 times zoom on the Samsung. And you can see that both are doing excellent. They've even got those wisps of my hair on the top. And both are doing good in this example, but the edges are better on the Samsung. The iPhone has sort of missed out a bit in between my arms, and it's also made a bit of an error on the side of my ear. But the Samsung is brighter, and in doing so, it has clipped ever so slightly my shiny forehead. Now, I'm sure Samsung has done some work to reduce this because it is doing better compared to previous generations, but it's still not doing as good as the iPhone when it comes to maintaining that dynamic range. Now, I really wanted to see which one of these has the best edge detection. So here we looked at a side profile shot just to test out my beard. Now you can see that the iPhone is giving you quite a natural looking portrait where it's not cutting things out so harshly. Whereas on the Samsung, it almost looks like it's giving me a bit of a beard trim and it can look a little bit artificial. Now for selfies, both take really good selfies. The iPhone is wider. And for selfie portraits, once again, both do excellent with the edges. When you use portrait mode for selfies on the iPhone, it does crop in slightly, but then you can just take a regular selfie and turn it into a portrait, which does the job fine, and it maintains that wider angle of view. Low light selfies both try to use a longer shutter speed, which doesn't really work in my experience. Here, I do think that the iPhone is doing better. And we can use the selfie flash on both devices where it illuminates the screen, and these are the results. Now, one advantage for selfies that the iPhone has is that it has a new square sensor, what Apple call a center stage camera. And this means that you can take both portrait and landscape images without having to rotate your phone. And this works really well. Now, before we move to video, we have to talk about the AI features that Samsung offers because they are some of the best out there. Now, you might already know that there is simply no competition when it comes to cleanup on the iPhone versus generative edit on the Samsung. Although cleanup on the iPhone can work somewhat when it's something basic like this, as soon as you've got something more complicated, it really struggles. Now, I really hope that this is going to change with the Gemini partnership that's supposed to be coming up soon. But for now, when it comes to AI, it's night and day. The Samsung wins hands down. And with the S26 Ultra, you also have some new features. So you can actually add prompts to edit your images. So for instance, you can see here, I can change my black jacket to white just by asking it, and it does a very good job. You can also blend different pictures together. So if I want a picture with punch, I can try to do that. And although it does give me a result, it's not the best result, but nevertheless, this is something that the iPhone simply can't do. Right now, let's take a look at the video. 4K, 30 frames a second in good light, both are excellent. You've got lots of detail. Dynamic range was also close. Even shooting in HDR, both did a great job, but when I exported the HDR video out from the Samsung, then it did add a bit of a blue tint. I mean, there was really no blue on the day that I was filming. But for low light, I consistently found that the iPhone was sharper with cleaner overall video, as you can see from the examples here. However, because of the new lenses on the Samsung, although there is some lens flare, there is nowhere as much compared to those lens flare orbs that you have on the iPhone. The Samsung can also shoot at 8K from the ultra-wide, the primary, as well as the telephoto cameras. And this gives you so much more detail. It also allows you the ability to crop in to your subject after the fact. Now for stabilization, this was very interesting because at 4K without any special modes, both are very, very close. Comparing action mode to super steady, once again, things are very close. Both of these have excellent stabilization. But the Samsung has a new trick up its sleeve, and that's super steady with horizontal lock. Now, this feature isn't really for action shots or anything like that. It's more to keep your shot steady. And if you're somebody with unsteady hands, or if you're going to be passing your phone to somebody that can't really keep the camera straight and is going to be going from side to side, this is going to be amazing. Check out this example. Moving side to side on the iPhone, you can see the result, but on the Samsung, it looks like I haven't moved at all. And you can actually do a full 360 and it's still gonna maintain that horizontal lock, which is absolutely mind-blowing. I also found that the Samsung was more stable from the selfie camera, which was a bit of a surprise to me because traditionally the iPhone has been more stable from the selfie camera, but in my testing this time, the Samsung was. But the iPhone is wider from that selfie camera and it was a bit sharper. Now for cinematic video, you saw the example on the intro. Neither of these were perfect and both did a decent job overall. But on the iPhone, you can change the point of focus and also edit the blur after the fact. This is something that you can't do on the Samsung. Both devices can shoot in log, so this will give you a flat picture profile, which you can edit afterwards. The S26 Ultra also has a new APV video format that you can record to, and this is a lossless format which will let you edit over and over again without losing quality. And the S26 Ultra has Pro Video built in, so you can really customize your settings like your ISO, your white balance, right within the camera app. You're not gonna have to get a third-party app. On the iPhone, you would have to get a third-party app if you want this level of control. For slow motion, both can shoot at 4K 120 frames a second, and I think both do a good job overall. On the S26 Ultra, you can have 4K 120 frames a second from the ultra-wide camera. This is not available on the iPhone. However, on the iPhone, you can choose 2x zoom when shooting 4K 120 frames a second slow motion. You can't do this on the Samsung. Now for audio. So on the Samsung, you can clear out background noise with audio eraser. On the iPhone, you have something called audio mix and it gives you 3 options: in frame, studio, and cinematic. To me, in this example, in frame sounded best, and here it is versus audio eraser.
So now we've got audio mix versus audio eraser on the S26 Ultra. Let's see which one of these can cancel out all of the background noise that we've got, especially that Alfred.
Now, whichever one I pick for audio always seems to annoy people because my hearing is not the best. So I'll leave it to you guys. Let me know down in the comments below which one of these sounds better. And that is the SuperSaf style camera comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra and the iPhone 17 Pro Max. In my opinion, both of these have excellent all-round cameras and you really can't go wrong with either. If you want to pick either of these up and you want the best deals, then do check out my affiliate links down in the description below. To conclude, on the iPhone, you've got that center stage camera, which is super useful. You've got photographic styles. You've got better performance in low light overall. But with the S26 Ultra, you've got a dedicated 3x zoom camera. You've got better extended zoom in good light. I'd say it's got a better ultra-wide camera. It's got 8K video and some amazing AI features that you're not going to find on the iPhone. That's what I think anyway. What do you guys think? Drop me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Which one would you pick out of these two? As SuperSaf mentioned, a hands-on comparison between both devices is going to be coming very soon. So be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon if you haven't already. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then do smash that like button for me. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV, and I'll see you next time.